Hello there. So today I'm going to lead with the question: is doing the right thing poisoning your vision and creativity? Yes, that's where we're headed today as we talk about what I'm calling the toxicity of conventional wisdom for visionary people. Patricia here. And before we jump in, I just want to ask you to please remember to hit the thumbs up, to subscribe as we try to push this channel forward and make sure that it reaches the right people who need to hear what we're sharing in here today. All right, so here's the thing. There are so many examples I think that I probably have for where this applies. The biggest one I'm going to share from is when I had taken over a large portion of the agency that I used to work for in the state government, and it was a hot mess. There's no other way to describe it. It was on record as being a hot mess, and if there was something that was wrong, that could be wrong, it was. So many things, every single department. The staff was underpaid. So basically, the function had been inside this agency previously. Then it went outside of this agency to become its own small agency because of the population, educators and all of that. So who advocated for, and I don't think that was wrong. Advocated for being self-regulating. That's what we're looking for, and it was. However, the function never was fully developed, never fully funded the way it needed to be. Lots of things that didn't happen. And so it was just getting crumbling. So the solution then was for the function to go back inside the agency that it had previously been a part of. It had been outside of it for like 10 years. So this is like 10 years worth of mess. And by the time it reaches back and comes back, I'm at the agency already, where I had started up a new division. So I was the head of a new uh, small specialty office division, and this function's coming back. So because of what I was able to do with the division that I had started, the work that I was doing there, I was invited to be a part of the conversation on what we're going to do once this function comes back. So it was a cross agency team with some of the brightest minds, smartest people, who, leaders in their fields and areas across all kinds of things, right? From the lawyers to the program development people to the policy, as in the rulemaking administrative folks. I mean, like, it was just everybody. And there I am, invited, because I was like, why am I here? They're like, no, we like the way you think. This is the senior leadership. We like the way you think. So we need those ideas to come in, and we need for you to be a part of this conversation. Not the first time that I've been invited to a conversation for those reasons, probably, and definitely not the last. And so as we're going through this and we're just seeing, I'm like, this is a mess. And some of us are talking quietly by ourselves of what's going to happen. All of a sudden, unbeknownst to me, I had no idea this conversation was going on. But it was finally slipped and set in front of me. And was like, yeah, we think Patricia can be the person to take on leadership for this role. And I was like, whoa, 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 where did that come from? Yeah, I'm flattered. It's like, oh, I'm flattered. Yeah, that's fine. But I was just like, no, they're serious. And it was so serious that another colleague of mine, who I respect greatly, pulled me into his office and was like, hey, I just want to make sure, like, if this is headed where I think it's headed, I want to make sure that you understand, like, how like this can literally just blow up in your face because the whole thing's a mess. And are you prepared, and are you, walking into this with your eyes open? And I appreciate him to this day for respecting me enough and caring about me enough to pull me aside and have that conversation. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, okay, whatever you need, I'm here for you. And his part of the agency was huge, was like a huge part of everything that needed to happen. He was over HR. They were in charge of all the finances, like all the things. Like I was going to be coming through their people all the time, anyways. So that mattered, but I also had the support from the very top, who literally dictated down whatever she needs, give it to her. Now, as we move forward and we realize there was just all of these problems, people being underpaid, the wrong types of uh, assignments having been made when it comes for HR purposes, rules that hadn't been filed properly, like all of these things. And this transition happened in the midst of a major hurricane where our state became a spot for other educators, students, and whatever from other states, specifically Louisiana, coming in. And so we're flooded with trying to make that happen. And oh, yeah, I was still working my quote regular gig as the director of that new division. Y'all, all kinds of things going on there. And why do I talk about that? It's not a brag moment because it's just the truth. It was crazy times. But here's the thing. I could not have taken on the leadership of that function at that time if I had been limited in my approach to things. I was told to fix it, do whatever you needed to fix it, and we will help you find the resources or whatever that you're going to need to fix it. Because the job was to fix the function, fix the problem, and salvage it. Like it wasn't optional because the function could not go away, right? And it affected thousands of people across the state with their jobs, with their work, plus students who were affected by whether those people, worked in those jobs. So if I were to look back and say, well, and because here's the thing, during some of those conversations, there were definitely folks who were like, oh, well, you can't do that because the rules are this, or we can't do that because this timeline or whatever. And I was just like, well, here's the reality. We have to figure out another way because this over here is going to go and really explode, and not in a good way if we don't. That was going on constantly. There was always a fire that needed to be put out. And what I could not afford was to be limited by conventional wisdom of, well, this is just the way it's supposed to be done. Because it literally did not apply in most of those situations to fix. Perfect example, um, very non-conventional, was to, and this is public record, was to open up, as part of the transition, to open up all of the leadership roles, so the director roles, and to interview for the positions. And if the persons who were in it wanted to interview for it, fine, but open it up to all, to whoever wanted to apply for the roles. And I did that. And we did that for 5 director level positions not just director, and a deputy assistant. I mean, a deputy. I think I said the right deputy assistant commissioner. Something. I don't know what the titles are these days. Anyway, what it was, but one of those roles as well. From, let's see, we started that in late August, and by October 1st, they were all in place or about to be in place. Hadn't I had folks come in telling me, they're like, we don't even know how you did that. That's never been done before in state government. And I was just like, it had to be done. And I served on every hiring committee except one. I wrote the questions for every one of the panels, hiring panels. Like, it was hardcore. You don't get that done by just going along with what had to, it was like, oh, well, that's not the right. We had to find ways. So that friend of mine who asked me if I was sure about it, well, guess what? Some of the people who had to make decisions that were like, oh my gosh, we don't know what to do with this. They were the ones who had to sit down and like, we have to find a way. And so learning how to, adapt rules, learning where there were emergency rules that had never been utilized before, but could be because this situation applied. Like it was that level of urgency across the board. Where conventional wisdom was nice and hunky dory, but did not apply. And had I been limited by it, I wouldn't have been able to continue the work. I would have never been able to get done what we did get done. And it would have been a failure, and it would have been my career if I had been limited by just doing what, quote, uh, was the right thing to do based on old ways of doing things. Does that make sense? Because we were still doing the right thing. It was the right thing for that moment, which did not look like anything that had come before it. And this is why I say conventional wisdom can be toxic and totally poison visionary people in their careers and their ability to lead. Because you can get so tied up by people talking about, well, that's not the way we did it before, or this is the way it's always been done. I don't give a rat's tail about the way it's always been done. Like, I have been in enough situations in my career that I no longer care about the way it's always been done. And mind you, I was probably very much the rule follower when I first started out in my career, make sure. But at the same time, I have a natural curiosity about things, period. Always have. Always ask questions. Being told, well, don't worry about that. Like, but I was always the person to ask questions. And that's what developed in my career, to ask questions. Asking questions, being curious, led me to win cases as a baby lawyer against way more experienced people that I was not supposed to win. Right? Exploring ways of putting ideas together that weren't, and concepts together that weren't supposed to do that, but I did, and it won. Right? So this is how, unbeknownst to me myself at the time, I developed that and developed that reputation for thinking outside the box, for being willing to push the envelope when it comes to challenging the status quo, and why we do it. Now, if we come back to it and it turns out that's actually the best way to do things, cool, let's go. But moving forward with the status quo just because it is the status quo, no. And that is something I still learn from and chat the challenge, because it's so easy to slip back into that. I'm a lawyer by training. I mean, the law is something we respect, right? Normally, the law is something we respect. We have respect for it. the rule of law. But even within that, being an advocate, you learn to ask questions of the law and whether it still applies in this, that particular fact scenario with what's going on today and how it gets updated. How do you think laws get updated? Someone has to question them. Someone has to challenge it. Someone has to say, yes, that's conventional wisdom. That's the way you've always done it. But what about this? That's the question. But what about this question that most of the time takes conventional wisdom and updates it? Right? So, here are a few things to remember. Doing the right thing is always going to be the right thing. That's not a question. The question is whether you're doing the right thing based on old concepts and being directed by the old concepts to define what the right thing is today. Question that. That's the piece. If it still is aligned, cool, great. Update it to today and keep it moving. But if it does not, you run the risk of tapping yourself down, um, and starting to hide, which can lead to resentment, of course, and that's not a good place to be. So if you're in a space or you're in a position where conventional wisdom is the only way and you're not invited to ask questions, to be curious, that might not be the space for you. If you're okay with that and staying there, it might be. But to also recognize that visionary people are the ones who often move forward. Folks who keep the line going, whatever, yes, their loyalty is there and all of that. But folks moving ahead are the ones who are thinking outside the box. And if thinking outside the box is forbidden, then you got a problem, right? Because it means you're not supposed to ask questions. You're not supposed to challenge things. Challenging things just for the sake of challenging, I'm not there. I see people do that, and I'm like, okay, fine, play that game. But normally, that's not what it's about. It's about, wait, is there another way to do this, right? Because if you are in a situation where thinking outside the box is forbidden, then you can rest assured creativity is dying on the vine there. Just plain and simple. Creativity is dying on the vine, and if you don't want to die with it, then you should probably move on. You should probably move on. I'm like, you may not even consider yourself a visionary, but you want things to be growing, and growth comes from exploring new things and being able to move forward those new things, right? Not from just keeping the status quo. So think about that. The other thing is innovation is born from creativity. If you're in a space that doesn't value that, doesn't value creativity, but says that they want to be innovative, you got to question that. How is that possible? How are you defining innovation? Because literally at the core of innovation is the creation of new things, of new approaches, of new systems, new ways of thinking about things. And so that always cracks me up. And it's like, oh, we want to be innovative. But oh, no, we can't do that because, that goes against what we've done before. And I'm just like, then I think you need to remove innovative from your language. Now, here's a very real thing because I've had it happen to me over and over again. So if you are a visionary person where you're out there ahead and you're thinking about these, and people are like, no, we're not there yet. Guess what? Sometimes you have to let people catch up to you, right? If you're in a space, I've had this happen to me numerous times in meetings. It can go a couple of different ways, but sometimes people aren't ready to get there. And so I might lay out a solution to a problem that people are, are naysaying or poo-pooing and like, oh no. But then 2.5 hours later, they reach that conclusion. And I'm like, oh, it just took y'all a little while to get there. And that's something that can be frustrating where I'm like, okay, I'm able to analyze a situation pretty quickly and be like, okay, yes, this is it. But everyone else has to get there, right? So that's the thing. Being appreciated as a visionary, as someone who thinks ahead of group, like you can be in a space where that works, right? You just have to know. Other people who are not, who recognize that you have something fresh or different to bring to the table, but they may be intimidated by it, you got to be mindful of that as well, because it's a real thing. People who are intimidated by visionaries are going to be the sticklers for conventional wisdom, or they're going to try to steal your ideas. Problem that will resolve itself because they won't be able to carry it through. It always shows up. I've had that happen a time or two as well. And, later on, people finding out, well, we always wonder why there was a gap in that because that didn't make sense. It's because it wasn't their idea. So they couldn't carry it out. They could only do this and try to, but it was never their idea. So, karma. Thank goodness for karma. It's a little frustrating. And there are lessons that you and I can learn from those moments. But I just want to remind you, not, especially if you're a visionary person, if you're a person who, likes to look ahead, who asks questions and to explore, do not let conventional wisdom poison your creativity, right? Protect your creativity with all that you have. Do not give in to it. And if it just seems like it's not going to work out, then that may be the sign that it's time for you to transition to whatever is next for you, right? So there we are. Okay, remember, if you're having moments where you're kind of like, I don't know, I want you to think about this. What if you are on the verge of the next great thing, but you're holding back because it bucks conventional wisdom? Think about that. And remember, visionaries see far beyond what's here today. And that is a great thing. Okay? Okie dokie. So that I'm Patricia. I did just say that, didn't I? Patricia, where I am here always supporting those women, business owners, professionals, women of color who are looking to lead in their professional lives and careers and businesses, and they want to do so authentically, who are looking to build the relationships that support that and to do that purposefully, strategically, and to be empowered, in their journeys all along the way, and to make sure that they're taking care of themselves as well. Because guess what? You got to take care of yourself if you're going to achieve at the greatest levels. You absolutely must. So I am saying to you that I hope that you remember today to celebrate you in all of your goodness each and every day in all the ways. And I will chat with you tomorrow. Bye.